Welcome back, Irish fans, to Breaking Out Breeze Boys podcast. Back on my own today, but we'll probably have some people on soon. Not sure exactly who, but going to try to incorporate some other people into this soon. But was at Notre Dame this weekend. Now on a kick to film some stuff. So looking forward to getting some stuff out before the season. First exhibition's in about a month, so got some time to put out some other type of stuff. Looking forward to that. But today, wanted to talk about some breakout players. A lot of talk made of Blake Wesley and JR, who actually ran into this weekend. But good reason for them. Brace said they're both going to be in the rotation, but I think Notre Dame could also get some contributions from guys who we've seen in the past and have seen play big roles, more contribution than we've got from them in the past. So wanted to talk about some underrated breakout players and one specific one for Notre Dame this year, who I think could have much improved seasons if Notre Dame wants to get to the tournament. I think these guys are going to be a big part of it, probably a bigger part of it than they've been in the past few years too. So wanted to get us into some guys. But first, wanted to talk about my weekend a little bit. Just was at Notre Dame, ran into JR, Blake, Alex Wade, and Blake's parents. So if they see this, shout out to them. They were all really cool people, but just a quick shout out to them. But gonna get into the breakout guys for Notre Dame this year. A lot of people, I guess, wouldn't consider them breakout candidates, but looking at the numbers and kind of looking at their inconsistency throughout the year and some of the areas they lacked in, I think these guys are all three guys who could really help Notre Dame down the stretch if they can improve. And I think they can, and I'll tell you kind of what areas I think they can improve in. So first, my number one guy who I think could break out this year, I think will break out, going to be a bit of a surprise since he didn't have a bad year at all last year, Cormac Ryan. I've heard some really good things about him from the summer and the fall about his game and also his leadership ability, how he kind of stepped into being a vocal leader for the team. Last year, averaged just a shade under 10 points. I guess we'll give him 10 because it was like 9.9. Really struggled early in the year to get good looks, faced some really high-level defenders early on in the year. But we did see towards the end of the year against like Duke, Pitt. I think he had a good game against Georgia Tech also, Syracuse. We saw he could really score off the dribble at a high level, which Notre Dame has kind of lacked from that position in past years. But they really got it with Cormac Ryan. Just got to get a little more consistently. But when you think about Cormac Ryan's game in general, he can score off the dribble at a pretty high level. We already know he can defend. And we know he can have explosive scoring performances like he did last year. It's kind of hard to call a guy who started a lot of games last year a breakout guy, but just because of his off the dribble scoring ability, I think Cormac Ryan could end up being honestly, this is going to be a bit of a hot take, but I think Cormac Ryan could be Notre Dame's best player this year rather than a 9-10 point per game scorer. I think he can end up being like a 15 point per game guy. Maybe even a couple more, 16, 17, which would make a huge difference for Notre Dame just because of the way he can score off the dribble. And just the way he defends, the all-around package of Cormac Ryan is really something I like heading into the season. I'll talk about it more in future videos, but Cormac Ryan is somebody that I think is going to have a huge year and is probably the key to the season for me for Notre Dame. There's obviously other stuff like defense and like Nate and Laz physicality down low if Notre Dame can get a post threat. And Atkinson, or I said Nate and Laz, Nate and Atkinson. But if Atkinson can be a big post threat, that'll be something. If they can get contributions off the bench, that'll be a big key too. But Cormac Ryan taking that next step into a high-level all-ACC type player is something I think Notre Dame could really use and could really benefit from down the stretch. So Cormac Ryan, definitely a candidate. I've heard some really good things about him over the offseason from, I guess, people who know. But I think we all kind of saw what he could do. And we heard really good things coming out of practices 2 years ago also, just about how great Cormac looked. And I guess kind of the same thing applies now. But this year, I think with the easier start against some mid-majors, and then not really anybody who's going to test Notre Dame a whole lot outside of maybe a team in Maui. Not a lot of teams that are going to test them until Illinois. And Illinois' perimeter defenders aren't great anyway, with Trent Frazier and Curbelo both being short guards. I think Cormac could have a big game there too. But overall, I think starting strong is going to be huge for Cormac. And if he does, then I'm really going to have a hard time seeing a lot of guys on this team being better than him, maybe even anybody. So Cormac is definitely a guy that has huge breakout potential this year. The number one guy I had pinned down for this. But there's two other guys also. The second one is Trey Wurtz. I don't know if this one's as likely because we kind of saw Wurtz in a big sample size last year, and he scored 8 points per game. But he was really efficient, especially from deep. I think he only shot 40% from the field overall, but from deep he was 42. I think Wurtz is kind of a guy who we kind of got an unfair look at last year. Thought he was kind of the odd man out because he was kind of just thrown in there. Didn't practice with the team for super long, and then kind of got thrown in there mid-season against Duke. He looked good at times. His defense could use work at times, but that flash too, where he played really hard on defense and made some plays. I just don't think he was necessarily in the flow of Notre Dame's offense last year. His dad kind of alluded to that when we talked to him, is that like he needs time to mesh with Cormac and Prentice and all those guys, and Dane. But over the offseason, I think he's probably had a chance to do that, to run with those guys more. And I think getting him into the flow of the offense is going to be a little bit easier now, which is kind of why I think he could take a step up. I think he has more off the dribble ability than we saw. But if he's comfortable in Notre Dame's offense and they're willing to put him in spots where he can get the ball and get good looks, I think Trey could also be a guy that turns from an 8-point scorer into an 11 or 12-point scorer, 12-point per game scorer. So Wurtz is definitely a guy who could have a breakout year. And somebody I'm also looking at to be a big focal point of this season if Notre Dame's going to be a really good team. So that's my second one, Trey Wurtz. Definitely a guy that I think we should be paying more attention to going into the year. And then the third guy, kind of a sneaky pick, because last year I think a lot of people thought he kind of hit his ceiling, but Dane Goodwin I think is also a guy not necessarily going to break out. He's not going to turn into like a 15-point per game guy like I think Cormac Ryan has the potential to do. Not saying Cormac Ryan's definitely going to do that, but Dane, I don't know if he has that potential, but I think he's more of a sneaky guy who can really help them. Maybe if people don't even notice that he'll be playing a lot better. He just got to shoot at a higher clip in conference play. I think if he can hit more of the open looks that he's gotten and not hit in the past, then that makes a big difference. I mean, if he can go from, I don't know exactly what he shot from three last year. Let me take a look. Shot 43% from the field, and what did he shoot from three? Dane shot 35% from three last year. So if Dane can turn into a 39, 40% free throw or 3-point shooter, then they're way better offensively. Just because, I mean, Dane had a lot of looks and games where he just wasn't hitting last year. And if you're going to be a stone cold shooter like Dane Goodwin is supposed to be and has been at times, you got to hit those shots. And if he does, then that turns Notre Dame from a good team to a great team if the other guys can step up as well. But also I think he could make a big impact with his defense. He hasn't done that at a necessarily high level over the years, but he could be a guy who helps him out there. I think he's going to be a better perimeter defender than in past years, but hopefully he doesn't get put on fours like he did last year at times. That just sets him up for failure, but he's just got to get better at moving his feet, staying in front of guys, which Solomon has really put into emphasis over the summer and over the fall. If Dane can kind of follow that, it's not like, I don't think that's unrealistic at all. If Dane can shoot at 38, 39% instead of 35, he's already shot at 37% in his career. If he can get closer to 40 and then keep his feet in front of guys on defense and not be a revolving door, like frankly we kind of saw at times against like Duke. I think I remember he was not good defensively, but Dane can be a guy who really steps up and helps, and even if a lot of people don't notice. We also saw like the Michigan State game at Bellarmine last year. We could really see him put it on the floor, go get his own looks. We saw that a lot more from him last year, and I think he definitely has the potential to do that now that he's more comfortable in Notre Dame's system and more comfortable running with Notre Dame. I think Dane could also be a guy who puts it on the floor a good amount. Not a good amount, but can be a lot better putting the ball on the floor, getting to the basket and just getting his own looks. So that's definitely something I'm watching for too. I don't think he's going to be Cormac or Trey in that regard, but if you have with like four guards on the floor who can all put it on the floor and get to the rim, get to the basket, instead of guys who are just shooting, which it kind of felt like these three were at times, that's a huge difference. Makes your offense so much more explosive. And this was a good offense last year too, which is the thing. It's just if these guys can be more consistent and hit looks, this could be a really special offensive group. And if Dane can play better defense, Trey can be more consistent on defense. And then you have guys like Cormac Ryan, Blake Wesley, Tony Sanders on the defensive end. That is a really good defensive team on the perimeter at least. Still yet to be seen down low, but this is a team that is really special if these guys step up. And I think I don't think it's super unrealistic that any of these guys step up. Maybe Cormac doesn't get 15 a game, but if he gets 13 a game, then Notre Dame's in business still. So that's kind of all I have. Definitely going to be pumping out more videos as we get closer to the season. Going to try to get some cool stuff going. But thank you guys for watching. Go Irish, and I'll be back soon. Peace.